New York is a state of extremes: towering mountains, endless forests, lakes that shimmer like glass, a land rich in history, a land full of beauty. But despite all of this beauty, the state is facing a major problem. Nearly all of its 20 million people live in just one tiny corner, New York City. The rest? Empty. Why is that? Why does upstate New York remain so empty? Covering more than 141,000 square kilometers, New York is a state of striking contrasts. While the world knows it best for the skyline of Manhattan, beyond the city lies a landscape of extraordinary variety: mountains, rivers, lakes, forests, and coastlines that make it one of the most geographically diverse states in America. In the northeast rise the Adirondack Mountains, a vast dome of rugged peaks that belong to the ancient Canadian Shield. Here, Mount Marcy, at 5,344 feet, towers above more than 6 million acres of wilderness inside Adirondack Park, a protected area larger than Yellowstone, Yosemite, and the Grand Canyon combined. South of this mountain stronghold runs the Hudson Valley, a corridor stretching from Manhattan north to Albany. The Hudson River has always been more than just a waterway. It's a backbone of trade, culture, and history. Its fertile banks, lined with small towns and cities, have carried the story of New York for centuries. At the state's center, glaciers carved the Finger Lakes, long, narrow ribbons of water with steep hillsides that create unique microclimates. Today, this region is famous for its vineyards and wineries, while its waters feed into rivers and canals, including the historic Erie Canal, once the lifeline of New York's growth. Farther west, the state meets two of the Great Lakes, Ontario and Erie. These inland seas bring shipping routes, commercial fishing, and of course, Niagara Falls, a natural wonder whose thunderous waters also generate immense hydroelectric power. To the south of the Hudson Valley, the Catskill Mountains rise in forested ridges and peaks, long celebrated as a retreat into nature and a muse for artists and writers. Cutting east to west, the Mohawk Valley provides a natural passageway through the state, its fertile floodplains supporting agriculture and settlement for centuries. And then there's Long Island, stretching east from New York City, with its sandy ridges, rolling hills, and more than 2,600 miles of winding coastline, longer than New Jersey, Georgia, and even Oregon. From the rolling hills of the Allegheny Plateau in the southwest to the shores of Lake Champlain in the north, New York's geography is as diverse as any state in the nation. But despite all this, there's a bigger reason why nearly everyone has crowded into New York City, leaving the rest of the state wide open, quiet, and in many places, surprisingly empty. New York State is home to nearly 19.9 million people, making it the fourth most populous state in the country, behind only California, Texas, and Florida. But what really stands out is where those people live. About 62% of the population is packed into the New York City metropolitan area, leaving just 38% scattered across the other 96% of the state's land. It's one of the most lopsided population distributions anywhere in the world. A big part of the story starts with climate. Upstate New York experiences a harsher continental climate, long snowy winters, and relatively mild summers. Cities like Buffalo are notorious for brutal lake effect snow, where cold winds blowing across the Great Lakes dump staggering amounts of snow in short bursts, sometimes shutting entire communities down. New York City, by comparison, benefits from its coastal location. Winters are cold, yes, but far more manageable, and summers are moderated by the Atlantic Ocean. For early settlers and even for families today, the milder climate of the city has always been more attractive. But climate is only half the story. The roots of New York's population imbalance go all the way back to the 1600s, when the Dutch established the colony of New Amsterdam. Perched on a deep natural harbor at the mouth of the Hudson River, it quickly became a magnet for trade, commerce, and immigration. Its geography gave it direct access to Europe and the rest of the colonies, and from the very beginning, it outpaced the rest of the state in both wealth and population. Upstate, meanwhile, developed along a very different path. With no access to ocean ports, a more challenging climate for agriculture, and long distances between fertile valleys, it remained isolated during those crucial early centuries. The presence of the powerful Iroquois Confederacy also slowed European settlement inland, as the alliance of tribes maintained control over much of the territory well into the colonial era. By the 1800s and 1900s, the imbalance only grew sharper. New York City transformed into a global financial hub, exploding in size. Between 1890 and 1900 alone, its population more than doubled, soaring from 1.5 million to 3.4 million. Upstate cities like Syracuse, Rochester, and Buffalo saw some growth thanks to the Erie Canal and later industry, but compared to the juggernaut of New York City, they remained regional centers rather than global ones. And here's the twist most people don't realize. Nearly half of New Yorkers don't even live on the mainland. Instead, they're crowded onto islands. Long Island alone is home to about 8 million people, making it the most populous island in the United States. Add in Manhattan and Staten Island, and you're looking at close to half the state's population living on just 3 islands. That concentration creates one of the sharpest internal divides of any U.S. state. Downstate New York is small, urban, densely packed, and extraordinarily wealthy. Upstate New York is large, rural, sparsely populated, and far less prosperous. In many ways, the two regions operate almost like separate states forced together under the same borders. And the imbalance becomes even more dramatic when you zoom out. Include the Bronx and suburban counties like Westchester and Rockland, and nearly 2/3 of the entire state lives in the southern tip of New York, on less than 4% of its total land area. The other 1/3 is stretched thin across the vast Adirondacks, the Finger Lakes, the Mohawk Valley, and the Canadian borderlands. But climate and location only tell part of the story. The real force shaping why so many crowd into New York City, and why the rest of the state remains so quiet, comes down to one thing: the economy. Economic opportunity has always dictated where New Yorkers choose to live. New York City sits at the heart of it all, a global hub for finance, media, technology, and countless industries. Its pull has been relentless for centuries, drawing immigrants, professionals, and entrepreneurs alike, making it by far the most populous and dynamic region in the state. Upstate tells a very different story. Cities like Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, and Albany once flourished, fueled by industry, trade, and the Erie Canal. Factories, shipping, and commerce created thriving communities with growing populations. The Erie Canal, completed in 1825, opened the interior of the continent to the Atlantic, turning upstate towns into bustling hubs. Buffalo even ranked among the top 10 largest U.S. cities at the turn of the 20th century. But over time, transportation and trade routes shifted. The St. Lawrence Seaway, completed in 1959, created a high-capacity route that bypassed the Erie Canal entirely. The rise of the interstate highway system, combined with offshoring and deindustrialization, further drained jobs from once bustling towns. Young residents left for better prospects, leaving behind quieter streets, aging populations, and slower economic growth. Even today, economic forces continue to shape population patterns. New York City's diverse economy keeps attracting talent from across the country and the world. In Upstate, universities, hospitals, tourism, and small industries provide work, but the scale is far smaller and opportunities remain limited. This contrast explains why cities like Buffalo and Rochester maintain moderate populations, while vast stretches of upstate remain open, sparsely populated, and in many areas, quiet. At its core, the story is simple. People follow opportunity, and in New York, almost all roads and livelihoods lead to the city. But even beyond jobs and industry, there's another silent force shaping upstate, a river that could have changed everything. One of the quirkiest details about New York's population distribution is the absence of a major U.S. city along the St. Lawrence River, despite its strategic location and importance as a waterway. Just 63 miles downstream from the New York state line sits Montreal, home to 4.2 million Canadians. Historically, major cities grew along rivers, where trade and transportation were easiest. Yet in New York, the St. Lawrence River never gave rise to a comparable metropolis. Several factors explain this. First, the river formed a natural border between the United States and British Canada. During the colonial era and early years of the Republic, tensions between the US and Canada made settling along the river less attractive. Second, the region's climate posed challenges. Long, bitterly cold winters made farming, travel, and year-round settlement far more difficult than in other parts of the state. Geography itself also played a role. The Great Lakes and the Erie Canal offered more direct and economically viable routes for moving goods. Completed in 1825, the Erie Canal connected the Atlantic to the interior of the continent through upstate cities like Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, and Albany. These cities thrived as hubs of commerce, while the St. Lawrence River, controlled at its mouth by Canada, offered limited opportunities for American trade and development. By 1959, the completion of the St. Lawrence Seaway created a modern, high-capacity shipping route, bypassing the Erie Canal entirely. Suddenly, upstate cities lost their trade advantage. The rise of interstate trucking and nationwide deindustrialization only accelerated the shift. Factories closed, jobs disappeared, and the economic pull of upstate weakened, driving people to leave for cities with more opportunity. Today, a few towns like Messina and Ogdensburg line the U.S. side of the river, but they never grew into major urban centers. And unless something drastic changes, that's unlikely to happen anytime soon. Upstate New York's early success and later decline illustrates a key lesson. Geography and economy are inseparable. Access to trade routes once made cities thrive, but shifts in transportation and commerce can just as quickly leave them isolated. It's a story that helps explain why, even in such a large and resource-rich state, nearly everyone still gravitates toward New York City, leaving much of upstate quiet, sprawling, and sparsely populated. If you enjoyed this journey through New York's geography, history, and economy, don't forget to leave a like. It really helps the channel grow. And if you want more fascinating stories like this one, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.